Hey, Clemson family, and welcome to episode number 4 of the Reign Supreme Alway podcast. We want to be one of your sources for analysis of the Tigers in 2022. Really want to thank everyone again for who's been listening and keeping an eye on our first 3 podcasts, interacting with us on social. It's been really good to see such a solid launch. Hopefully, we're going to continue to grow. Hopefully, we'll keep earning your loyalty. I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. It's great to be back, and let's jump right into this week's talk.
Sure. So we'll open with a short segment on recruiting. We don't have any commits to mention, but I think there are a couple high-profile targets that we could just mention a few things about. And I know you've done a little homework on them, and that would be defensive lineman Peter Woods, who has a scheduled commitment date tomorrow as we record this, which will be Friday, July 8th, and then running back Chris Johnson. So who do you want to start with there?
Yeah, let's go with Woods. I mean, he's the guy, right? He's the name that we keep hearing about. He's a big-time recruit. He's one of the best players in the country, and it sounds like it's going to come down between Clemson and Alabama. And he's from Alabama, so that makes a lot of sense. But I'm really hearing that Clemson has made some big time inroads here with Peter and has a real shot to get a commitment coming up on Friday. Now, look, if he commits on Friday, there's still 6 months until signing day, so you have to keep him in the fold if he does commit, but I think there's a really good shot for Clemson to get a big-time commitment on Friday.
Boy, he is really highly regarded among defensive linemen. I don't think he's a 5-star consensus, but he sure is being given sort of the attention of a 5-star talent, even some loose comparisons, usually with the disclaimer, this isn't fair to say, but Christian Wilkins.
Yeah, for Clemson fans, you hear Christian Wilkins. I remember in that championship game, it was either Chris Fowler or Kirk Herbstreit said that's as good as a career gets, right, with Christian Wilkins. And yeah, he won a couple of national titles. He's an All-American. Remember, he won the Academic All-American Award, too, that year. So, he did everything you could do at Clemson. And to compare someone to him is really saying a lot. So we'll see what Peter can become. I'm not a big comp guy. That's one of my least favorite parts of the NFL draft is when they compare them to former players. But if he stands up to that kind of comparison, that will be a big-time get for this class.
Absolutely. And then the other guy to discuss is running back Chris Johnson. Of course, Clemson did not yet get a running back commitment in this class, and Chris Johnson also is generally considered a lean toward another school rather than Clemson.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk that it's Miami is going to get him. There was some talk that he was going to commit to Miami this past weekend, and that didn't happen. And I was really surprised, Bill, that he didn't have an offer from Clemson until he announced it here today on Wednesday. So that really surprised me. And if Clemson could get him, that's a big time spot where I know you and I've talked about they need that running back in this class. They've got great running backs on this roster for this year, but this is a year and a half down the line, right, where they're going to need a big time back, and maybe they get one next year as well. But this would be a really good get, and we'll see if Clemson can stay in the mix here because that would be a real big pickup for the Tigers.
It seems to me that for all the career experience as a player that C.J. Spiller had with James Davis recruiting him successfully, and then the two of them working together to recruit Jamie Harper successfully, who, of course, didn't become as much of a household name as those first two guys. Now, as the guy who's the coach and trying to pull off the recruiting, and you see Will Shipley active on social media, I don't see as much of Phil Maffa or Kobe Pace, but I know they're out there too. I know they want to bring guys in, just not coming together.
Yeah, not yet. And look, I mean, CJ's been an actual assistant coach for a short amount of time. So it takes time to build up those relationships. I know he, had been around the program before, but getting out on the recruiting trail, being one of those few coaches who can actually go to these schools and build these relationships, it's going to take a little bit of time. So this year, next year, they're probably set at running back anyway with the ones they've got on the roster. So and you can see he's coached them up pretty well too. He's done a good job coaching them as they've been on the team already. But as far as getting the talent that he's going to need to keep that running back room solid or strong, it just hasn't happened quite yet. But I don't have any doubt that it's going to come as he continues to build these relationships.
Okay, so a couple of guys to keep an eye on, and then we'll just see. You never know if there's going to be a surprise or something else come out of out of the woods. But all right, so we'll move on to a much more solid topic, which would be the linebackers for 2022. And I was just listening to one of the longer form podcasts. I really like the Clemson podcast. Those guys do a nice job of breaking things down. And in this episode, they had the Shaking the Southline guys on as guests and just talking about how this could be the magnificent seven between the defensive line that you and I covered in the last couple episodes, and now this bunch of linebackers. Trenton Simpson is a first-round NFL possibility, super high draft pick candidate. You've also got Lavonta Bentley, who is a multiple-year returning letterman and junior. Then you've got Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter, a couple of sophomores. Carter looked pretty serviceable, pretty good last year, and you can see the potential for him to take that next step. And then Jeremiah Trotter Jr., very familiar name to people who follow the NFL. His father was a longtime success at linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles, primarily. What a group! I mean, have we been this excited about this deep group of talent at linebacker? And I didn't even mention Keith McGuire, who also looked good in the bowl game.
Probably not since you and I were in college when Clemson had Levon Kirkland in that group. It's been a while that Clemson has been this athletic and deep at linebacker. We'll see. Trenton Simpson, I'm with you. He's a lockdown first round pick next year. I liked what I saw from him last year, growing from maybe just a pass rusher to being a little bit more versatile, and that will help him as he goes to the next level. He can still get after the quarterback. There's no doubt about that. But I think we're seeing more versatility from his game, coverage against the run, all those things. And then I think Barrett Carter may be the most underrated player on the team, the entire team. I think you are looking at a guy this year who could really step into a big-time role and really be a big player for this group on defense. There's going to be a lot of tackles to be had with that defensive line clogging up the opposing offensive lines, and who's going to get those tackles. I could see Barrett Carter really having a huge year with tackles because he's as talented as anybody on this team. And I really believe if you said, Daniel, who's your breakout guy for 2022, it would be Barrett Carter.
Strong words, because there's a lot of talent on this defense, and Barrett Carter was really recruited to be that next Isaiah Simmons type. Dorian O'Daniel kind of pioneered that role very, very well, took it over and turned it into something that hadn't been before him. And then Isaiah Simmons pretty much perfected it, right? And Trenton Simpson's been in that spot a couple of years. And I've been real excited, and I've heard some other people talk about this too, that podcast being one of them, that seeing Simpson move over to kind of that Trey Lamar spot, if you will, or that Balin Spector spot. I think Spector elevated that spot a little bit as far as being capable in coverage. Simpson obviously can take it, giant steps compared to maybe those baby steps that we saw last year from Spector. And then you've got so many options in the middle. You've got Bentley if you want the experience. You've got Trotter if you want the upside. I think you're going to see a lot of snaps split there. I think Bentley's also got experience over in that sort of Trey Lamar spot, weak side linebacker. A lot of people call it will. Not a big fan of that word, but what does it mean? But when you see they are moving in the direction of having a lot more flexibility, they're moving in the direction of being able to kind of flop guys around to different positions. It's not Isaiah Simmons was able to move around the field, but what did you do if you took him out of his home spot at that Sam spot? And so who was your middle linebacker? Well, Brent Venables liked having one middle linebacker out there as much as he could, duct tape him together if he's not feeling great and shove him back out there. Well, I think now you've got a little more luxury. The talent is deeper and closer together. If a guy's not 100%, his 70% might not top the next guy, for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and you mentioned you said the flexibility, versatility. I really believe you're going to see that with this group. That's what makes Carter, for me, so dangerous with this defense, because he can do a little bit of everything. So, and Trotter's the same way. I think Trotter's going to up as well. Keith McGuire played really well in the bowl game. So you're looking at that group and you're saying, okay, there might be some unknowns as opposed to what you've had the past couple of years with Skalski. You knew what you were going to get from Skalski. But there's some unknowns this year. But I believe the upside is much higher. And that can make the defense a little bit even more dangerous than what it has been the past couple of years. And you've heard this coaching staff talk about versatility and guys being able to do more than one thing. well, they've got the perfect group with these linebackers.
We haven't even mentioned Tyler Venables, who I think has been pretty capable. He was the more capable player in my eyes of the two Venables, and I know he plays some at safety, but he does step up and play some of that strong side linebacker position, or that Sam position that Isaiah Simmons perfected, that we saw Trenton Simpson in last year. There's also some other guys. Sergio Allen was a heck of a recruit. We've touched on him in some previous talk. It'd be nice to see him in this supposedly new scheme. You know, you've got Dabo Sweeney saying, well, it's the Clemson defense. You got Wes Goodwin saying, yeah, but we got a few changes we can make. And then you got three young guys, TJ Dudley, Wade Woodaz, and Kobe McLeod, all freshmen, all true freshmen. Could it be that if things are going to be a little simplified or a little changed, could we see any of those three guys a little more than usual as far as freshman linebackers are?
Yeah, maybe, especially Dudley. I think Dudley is the biggest name of that group, but Woodaz is a talented athlete. He kind of fits that role that we've talked about with Isaiah Simmons and Dorian O'Daniel. And then Kobe McLeod may be more of a redshirt candidate, but if he plays well in those 4 games, then maybe he can step up as well. And I believe you're right about Sergio Allen. Sergio Allen he was the first commit in his class. And because I remember that, because he's from Peach County, which is right here near where I live. And I covered many of his games and watched him play many, many times. And I remember when he committed to Clemson. So he was the first guy in that class. So there, even if, we talked again, depth last week. Now there's a lot of depth with this group as well. So that'll be a big plus. I can't wait to see, what a Wade Woodaz can be, what a TJ Dudley can be. And maybe Kobe McLeod can surprise us a little bit because, he was a later commit. Yeah, he was quote unquote only a 3-star, but, maybe he comes in and works and gets things down. And like I said, the system, if it's quote unquote simpler, like Wes Goodwin has said, that gives these guys a chance to play and not think as much and just go chase down the ball. Maybe they get a chance to get on the field a little bit more this year than they would in the past.
What's the old phrase, an embarrassment of riches? I don't know that we've said that at linebacker in quite a while, but this year it sure looks deep. It sure looks very talented, and I can't wait to see, again, how they interact with the front 4 ahead of them, the Avengers lining up in front of them.
Yeah.
And how is that interaction going to change? We touched on that a little bit, so I won't repeat it too much, but how much will the responsibilities change? Will the defensive ends get turned loose a little more and the linebackers be asked to set that sort of containment role? Some of the best days of this defense during the playoff era have been when they don't blitz and don't overrush. Last year, they played a lot of base and really tended to do better in base than they did with all that trademark blitzing from Venables. They tended to get burned on blitzes more last year. So let's see what Goodwin has up his sleeve to kind of work with that. And I'm really excited about this defense. I think everybody is. And one week that they should have a really big opportunity to shine will be week 2. We should be able to get a lot of those reserves in, some of those freshmen that we were talking about, because they will be playing the Furman Paladins, which is not an offense strong team.
Yeah, look, Furman is an FCS program. Clemson should be able to play, 100 guys that day, 120 guys that day. That's a game Clemson should be able to control offensively, defensively, and put up a lot of points on offense and get a lot of guys on the field on defense. And it's one of those experience days that we see from this program in the past, where my son, as a student manager, always talks about these games where they have 120 pairs of cleats to clean because everybody got on the so this could be one of those games that we see that. And look, Clay Hendricks has done a good job at Furman. He's a really good coach. He's been there as the head coach since 2017. They've gone to the FCS playoffs a couple of times. He played at Furman. He later was an assistant at Furman before he went to the Air Force. So he knows what it's all about to coach at Furman. And that's a really good FCS program, national title, lots of playoff experience for that program. So it's not a pushover per se as far as it being an FCS program, but it is a game that Clemson should be able to win pretty handily. If it doesn't, we may be talking about some things that Monday or Tuesday after that game.
Boy, I might need an extra half a blood pressure pill if this game doesn't go well. Although Furman does return 16 starters, that's from a team that went 6-5 last year. It went 500 in conference play. I believe they were 4-4. Also, they are young and they are unsettled at quarterback in particular. I believe it's a sophomore and 2 freshmen who are competing for the job there. And so it's no surprise that their spring game, according to the Greenville News, was dominated by the defense. Just 2 touchdowns in that game, and they didn't split up into like an orange and white like Clemson does. The purple was all defense, the white was all offense, or vice versa. And even some of the game was more practice than actual scrimmage. So it just remains to be seen what they're capable of.
It does, and this is a game, like we said, where we could see a lot of guys, right? And some of those true freshmen, who are we going to see a lot of? I'd love to see those 2 freshman offensive linemen get a lot of playing time in this game.
Yes.
At Sadler and Blake Miller, because you want to see them be part of the group that as it moves forward. And playing time is huge for an offensive lineman. So you'd love to see them play a lot. Young wide receivers, Antonio Williams. What about Adam Randall? Will he be healthy? Jaden Lucas, will he be healthy? Those 2 guys who had the injuries in spring practice. But for me, I want to see those 2 offensive linemen and see what they can be in a game that they should be able to dominate. It's not a conference game. It's not a Georgia like last year. It's not even Georgia Tech like the first game of this year. But what can they do up front and get some playing time and get some experience under their belt? It's going to be huge.
Yeah. A couple other guys I want to mention. I'm really glad you brought up those offensive linemen. Hopefully they will also be playing some against Georgia Tech, although it better not to rush them. But on defense, I want to see cornerback Toriana Pride and safety Sherrod Koval get in there. They both looked good in the spring game, showed promise given the format that was in. I'd like to see that translate into some solid performance because they probably won't be on the 2 deep, but I do think that they might not redshirt, that we might need them. We've seen how all too often on defense, you got to have those 3rd stringers in there and getting significant snaps even in conference play. So I'd love to see week 2 a good dose of both of them, week 3 a good dose of both of them, maybe even moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I especially in that secondary where it feels like Clemson is solid at safety, but there's some question marks at cornerback. You don't lose Andrew Booth and Mario Goodrich, both to the NFL, the 2 first-team All-ACC cornerbacks. You don't lose them and just say, okay, we're moving on, right? There's going to be a little bit of a step back, and can these guys help? Jane Lucas as well at cornerback, but Ken Pride and Chauvel help in that secondary is going to be huge. And, there could be some playing time early. We talked earlier about TJ Dudley and those young linebackers. How much will they get on the field versus Furman? So, this defense, there's so much talent that when these young guys get on the field, whether it be in the linebacking core or in the secondary, even up front, if there are some snaps up front, I don't know that there are many, but if they get that chance, they've got to take advantage of it. And that's going to be huge in these first 3-4 games of the season.
I agree. So hopefully when we watch the Furman game and hopefully a couple others early, we'll be paying more attention to what the Tigers are doing rather than the scoreboard and the nature of the game situations. Yes. So let's close things out, flipping over to baseball, flipping over to Major League Baseball, and looking at some former Clemson Tigers, 3 in particular, who have been pretty newsworthy this year. And let's start out with the most newsworthy of them all, and that would be Spencer Strider, who I would think is a Rookie of the Year candidate in the National League.
Sure feels like it. I mean, he has stepped right into the Braves rotation, and he is a must-watch, Bill, when he pitches every 5 days. He's throwing 100, over 100, and then he drops that change up a couple of times a game. And the Braves needed somebody to step up in their rotation because of Mike Soroka's still out, and they've got some other uncertain spots, and Spencer Strider has really taken advantage of that. We going into this season, the 4th and 5th starter for the Braves were probably the biggest question marks on this team, and Spencer Strider has taken one of those roles and run with it. And so he's got to be in the mix for Rookie of the Year, because you would think, as well as he's pitched, he's going to get a bunch more opportunities to continue to pitch for a team that is going to be in the pennant race. So I think you're looking for some big things coming up for Spencer Strider the rest of the season.
Yep, a lot of Braves fans in the Clemson family. Strider with a 2.87 ERA. He's pitched in 18 games. He's now made 7 starts and 90 strikeouts in fewer than 60 innings. So, boy, what a heck of a first half for him. We're actually at the midpoint of the first half as far as baseball being played, even though we're not quite to the All-Star break yet. And Strider certainly showing the potential that brought him to Clemson, although he had some bad injury luck that really kept him from showing it while he was a Tiger.
Yeah, he had the Tommy John surgery 1 year, and then we had COVID the next year where he didn't really get to pitch a full season. So you'd think, okay, yeah, he pitched at Clemson, but he didn't get a lot done at Clemson because he didn't get many opportunities. And he's a 4th-round pick. I know a lot of the people, Braves fans and around the team were thinking 4th-round pick for this guy. Where are his numbers? And you look at Alex Anthopoulos in that group, and they had done their homework on what this young man could be. And Bill, he also said before this season, he wasn't exactly doing what they wanted him to do. And they sat him down and said, look, you need to do it this way. And he took that coaching. He didn't pout. He didn't, say, forget you guys, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. He took the coaching that they gave him and started doing the things they wanted him to do, and it's paying off.
Yep. At the opposite end of the major league experience spectrum would be Brad Miller, who is in his 10th major league season and filling in nicely for the Texas Rangers. In the first half, he's had 7 home runs, which for a guy who's not playing every day, 163 at bats, pretty decent. 27 RBIs. The batting average is only 215, but that's kind of the thing these days in the major leagues. One of my favorite moments in Brad Miller from high school was a Central Florida guy as well. I actually 1 year by chance happened to be in Milwaukee while he was with the Brewers and drew a walk-off walk in extra innings in the 10th inning and won the game with a walk RBI. So that was a lot of fun. I've always tried to keep tabs on him. So it's good to see him playing regularly and keeping his career going too.
Yeah, as a Phillies fan myself, I was really excited when he was with the Phillies the last couple of years, and he had a lot of big hits and a lot of big home runs and became a big part of that clubhouse. And I hated to see him leave that team and move over to the Rangers, but he's had a good impact on the Rangers as well. And yeah, the batting average is what it is. That's baseball now. Batting average has become a stat that maybe people don't focus on as much, but when he's had chances to have big hits, for the most part, he's come through and has had a really good career. He's been in the major leagues, like you said, for about a decade, and he has really mapped out a good career since he left Clemson.
Another big Clemson name hasn't fared as well, and that would be Seth Beer. He was up to start the season, had a great opening day, had a home run that made a lot of headlines, then fizzled after that. And uncharacteristically for him in the minors, since going down to AAA, he's also struggling there. So hopefully we'll see him come back before long. Hopefully we'll see him right the ship and maybe get a September call-up. Steven Duger has kind of been on the bus back and forth for San Francisco from the minors. Been a couple of pitchers around the majors as well. So Clemson making an impact in the major leagues, but certainly no more so than with Strider, and that has to keep a lot of fans here in the South pretty pleased.
Yeah, I live right here in middle Georgia, and there are a lot of Braves fans around me, believe me, and they love Spencer Strider. And again, he is a must-see TV. When he pitches, it's almost become an event. Did you see what Spencer did last night? Did you see him hit 102 in the 4th inning? I mean, so that's not something that's normal, especially for a guy who's not that big. He's a smallish guy, but his way his body is built, he's built perfectly to be a power pitcher. And he's taking advantage of that and making the most of his opportunity with the big league club.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, I think that about does it for this week. Next week, we will look to safeties, which is a natural progression, moving from linebackers into previewing the Clemson safeties in 2022. We will look at Louisiana Tech. Again, we'll have to do a little digging because their info is kind of tougher to find a little bit, right? But and we'll keep you posted on any recruiting news or any other news around the program. If anything starts happening with conference realignment, we'll jump in on that. And who knows? You think we'll end up with doing what do you call it? The emergency podcast?
The emergency podcast, if there's some movement for Clemson conference wise. I don't know that we'll see that this week, but I'm telling you, Bill, every morning I get up, first thing I do is look to see what's happened. And I'm refreshing throughout the day to see who is going to be the next team to jump. And there are a lot of people who are including Clemson in that mix. So Clemson's a hot property right now, and I wouldn't be shocked by anything that happens. Go to the SEC, go to the Big Ten, stay in the ACC. None of that will shock me right now with what's going on in college football.
Yeah, well, we will stay on top of it. I know everyone will, and hopefully you'll come to us for analysis and outlook on what it all means. So I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode as well, and we are glad you found us, Clemson family. Smash that subscribe button, smash that follow button. Don't miss out anytime we post. We'll keep you up to speed on what's happening and the context that it's in. Hopefully you give us a rating, give us a like while you're at it. So you can also find us at ClemsonKickoff.com, which is our homepage. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter at Clemson Kickoff, on Facebook at Reign Supreme Alway.
Yeah, have a great week, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will talk to you next week. Maybe some big-time commitments on the Tiger side, and we'll break it all down for you next week.
Sounds great. He's Daniel Shirley. I'm Bill Zimmerman, and until next time, go Tigers.